My favorite season is summer, but I aspire to love the winter. And although me and winter are on better terms than we used to be, there's still a ways to go. As with many of you, when the seasons change, I can feel a difference within me in how I relate to the world. For the past few years, I've kept an exercise log, and I noticed recently looking back that starting around mid-November, as the days started to get darker and colder, that I had stopped exercising for almost a month without even noticing. I'm now back in the game, but the larger point is an invitation to be attentive to how the external rhythms of the seasons manifest within us, and consider how we might relate to the various seasons more intentionally. As I said a few years ago in a sermon on the spirituality of winter, how might this time of year be a particularly fruitful season to experiment with the spiritual practices of silence, of letting go, of saying no. You can also look in our online sermon archives for a corresponding sermon I preached on the spirituality of spring. But that, in particular, is a topic for another day, for we are now many months until spring, here on the first day of winter. For now, on this winter solstice, the shortest day and the longest night of the year, I would like to invite us to reflect further on the spirituality of winter, starting with these words from Donald Hall, a former poet laureate of New Hampshire, from his book, Seasons at Eagle Pond. Unlike my love of summer, of heat, of long hours of daylight, I mean, if it's 100 degrees outside, I'm like, let's go run 4 miles. That's my idea of a good time. When it's below 40, I'm like, not so much. But here are Hall's words. Some of us are darkness lovers. We do not dislike the early and late days of June, the whippoorwill's gray time, but we cherish the gradually increasing dark of November, which we wrap around ourselves in the prosperous warmth of wood stove, oil, electric blanket, storm window, and insulation. We are partly tuber, partly bare. Inside our warmth, we fold ourselves in the dark, and the cold is around us, outside us, safely away from us. We tuck ourselves up in the long sleep and the comfort of cold's opposite, warming ourselves by the thought of the cold, lighting ourselves by darkness's idea. Or are we Persephone, gone underground again? Sheltered between stove and electric light, we hollow islands of safety within the cold and dark. As the light grows less each day, our fur grows thicker. Maybe that is the case for some of you as well. Or as the spiritual writer Barbara Brown Taylor said in an article a few years ago about redeeming darkness, she says, ask any expectant mother if she wants her baby to come early, and she will say no. As badly as her back hurts, as long as it has been since she has last seen her toes, she is willing to wait because the baby is not ready yet. The eyelashes are ready, but not the fingernails. The kidneys are ready, but not the lungs. Those wing-shaped sacs are still preparing to make the leap from fluid to air. There is still more time in the dusky womb where the baby is growing like a seed in the dark. The cold, dark days of winter and the barren branches of deciduous trees all invite us to see the virtues of stillness, of patience, of waiting, for new life and new hope that will come in a future season. In the words of Albert Camus, in the depths of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. In reflecting on these themes, it's vital to name that not only are we here in the Northern Hemisphere entering into a season of winter and darkness, but also we in this country are in a season of tragic reminders of pervasive racial injustice. as we continue to reflect on what it means today, on the darkest day of the year, to experiment with the spirituality of winter. Consider these words from our UU religious educator, Jackie James, about conscious and unconscious associations with words like dark and night and black. She writes, blackmail, blacklist, black mark, Black Monday, black mood, black-hearted, black plague, black mass, black market. But good guys wear white. Bad guys wear black. We fear black cats in the dark continent, but it's okay to tell a white lie. Lily white hands are coveted, and it's great to be pure as the driven snow. Angels and brides wear white. Devil's food cake is chocolate, and angel's food cake is white. We shape language, and we are shaped by it in both conscious and unconscious ways. In our culture, white is esteemed, it's heavenly sunlight, clean, pure, immaculate, innocent, beautiful. At the same time, black is evil, wicked, gloomy, depressing, angry, sullen. Ascribing negative and positive values to black and white enhances the institutionalization of our culture's racism. So let us acknowledge as well the negative connotations of whiteness. White things can be soft, vulnerable, pallid, and ashen. Light can be blinding, bleaching, and enervating. Conversely, we must acknowledge that darkness has a redemptive character, that in darkness there is power and beauty. The dark nurtured and protected us before our birth, as we heard from Barbara Brown Taylor. Welcome darkness. Don't be afraid of it or deny it. Darkness brings relief from the blinding sun, from scorching heat, from exhausting labor. Night signals permission to rest, to be with our loved ones, to conceive new life, to search our hearts, to remember our dreams. The dark of winter is a time of hibernation, and seeds grow in the dark, fertile earth. The words black and dark don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. The words white and light don't need to be destroyed or ignored either, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. Imagine a world that had only light or only dark. We need both, dark and light, light and dark, as with the turning of the wheel of the year with the seasons. In the spirit, Barbara Brown Taylor, whose article I quoted earlier about expectant mothers, has expanded her reflections into a new book called Learning to Walk in the Dark. Such perspectives on learning to embrace a spirituality of winter, of darkness, of silence and stillness may be more important today than ever before. With the increasing spread of smartphones and tablets, we live in what may be the least dark time in human history. As much as I love my iPhone and the ability to stream television and movies at night, scientists tell us that every time we turn on any sort of light after dark, receptors in our eyes and skin send messages to our adrenal, our pituitary, and our pineal glands to stop what they are doing and get ready. It's a new day. There's light. Fluorescent lights and computer screens flicker on and off at about 60 to 120 cycles per second, which is enough to fool your brain into thinking the sun is coming up, but all you were trying to do is check your smartphone. Even the light from a cell phone charger or glow-in-the-dark light clock can cue your body that morning is underway. When that happens, your adrenal gland starts pumping more adrenaline into your bloodstream to handle the stress of an ordinary day, as opposed to the safety of night in your bed. It tells your pituitary gland to back off the human growth hormone that your body uses to repair your muscles and your bones at night. It also signals your pineal gland to stop making melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep, which it can only do in the dark. No wonder sleep aids have their own section in the supermarket. So as grateful as I am for the advent of widespread electrical light and the miracles of modern technology, there are ways that these quite recent inventions of human technology cut against the grain of our circadian rhythms that have evolved to function over billions of years. I'm reminded of a time about a decade ago when I was on a 5-day backpacking trip in Wyoming's Bridger Wilderness. When you're in a state like Wyoming with a low population density and then 2 full days into hiking in and uphill in a wilderness, mountainous area, light pollution is drastically reduced from what we're accustomed to. I remember getting up in the middle of the night and being stunned with the sheer resplendence of the night sky, far beyond what I was accustomed to seeing even when visiting what we call the country, right? Which just means anywhere outside the city. As Taylor writes, the Milky Way, about which Ovid wrote more than 2,000 years ago, is now invisible to 2/3 of the population living in the United States. If this doesn't bother you, then maybe you've never stretched out above your head like a meadow, the stars. Lie down in it, even with your eyes, and you risk wondering things that will leave you dizzy for days. As we consider the implications of the disappearing darkness from our lives with the advent of modern technology, it's important to keep in mind that earlier quote from the religious educator Jackie James about the consequences of the positive connotation bias for light and the negative connotation bias for dark. In religion, one place this impulse and this bias has been particularly present in a way that has impacted Western culture is in Orthodox Christianity. It's in other places as well. In the Bible, when God is angry with people, they are plunged into darkness. Locusts darken the land. People grope in the night, in the dark without light, for the day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Light stands for knowledge and darkness ignorance. 1 John 1:5 says, God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. The male pronoun him in that sentence is no coincidence. As we talked about a little bit last week in my sermon on Exodus, Gods, and Kings, part of the problem is that God, given our patriarchal past, has for the most part been understood as male. And in classical archetypes, masculinity has been associated with classical descriptors like bright, hot, hard, active, above, up, external, and solid. Similar words that are connoted with seasons like summer, the opposite of this time of year. Femininity, in turn, is traditionally described as dark, cool, soft, still, down, interior, empty. Similar words to winter. And although our culture is moving towards a more nuanced and mature understanding of gender complexity, the perceived value of those two sets of words historically has been deeply shaped by our culture's misogyny, sexism, and heteronormativity. So learning to walk in the dark, coming to embrace darkness, stillness, and the spirituality of winter can be potentially transformative on many different levels, both individually and societally. Along these lines, Taylor points out that too many traditional religions limit themselves to what she calls a full solar spirituality, which emphasizes only the sunny side of faith, which includes a sure sense of God's presence, certainty of belief, and divine guidance in all things, and reliable answers to prayer, always 24/7, and if it doesn't happen, it's your fault. You're not being sunny enough. Reflecting on her childhood, she writes, I was suffering from the full solar version of Christianity, dedicated to keeping young people like me out of as many dark places as possible, including but not limited to smoky nightclubs, back alleys, dark bedrooms, shady dope dens, and dim jail cells. And in many ways, it was just what I needed at the time. The problem is that full solar spirituality can cause an arrested development in one's theology if you stay there. When faced with the complex problems of the adult world, full solar spirituality can only reply with saccharine slogans such as, God won't let you be tested beyond your strength. And those saccharine slogans are inadequate to the dark nights of the soul that will inevitably come our way. As she has grown older and wiser, Taylor writes that she has increasingly found the need to move from a full solar spirituality to what she calls a lunar spirituality. in which the divine light available waxes and wanes with the seasons, as do the phases of the moon. These sorts of insights are why we added a sixth source to our Unitarian Universalist list of sources, the spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and invite us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. If you're curious to learn more, you can drop by tonight's winter solstice ritual, come to one of our monthly full moon labyrinth walks, or our labyrinth is right here between the sanctuary and the chapel, is always there. So you can come here and walk it at a time that feels right to you in solitude. In our society that is often exclusively focused on a linear path of going onward and upward forever, and that we have to keep up with the Joneses and just spend more and more and get more and more, it can be a transformative practice to regularly set aside time and space to walk a circular path like the labyrinth, one way in and one way out, which invites you, instead of seeking a place, somewhere else where the grass is allegedly greener, the labyrinth instead invites us to be ever more fully present to all that you already have, right here and now. Today is the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. How might you be called to experiment with darkness and with silence? In this winter season, of what might you be called to let go of? I invite you to reflect on that briefly for a few moments of silence, and then we'll have some time to share. How might you be called to embrace darkness and stillness? What might you be called to let go of?